only 10 members. So this is the only one here.
Okay, we are live.
We are.
Yes.
Craig Marshall.
And I am, I've
I'm
got
on his way, he should be here any minute.
that pulled up just in case.
I'm sorry?
I've got the live stream pulled up in case questions come through on that.
No, you don't get to sit in the back.
I think I have a cold.
I think I have a cold.
Feet. Hello, fellas.
Hey,
Zany.
Hello.
I would like to start this by complaining about the fact that they're going to dig up my yard. I don't want my yard done.
nice day, Ron.
Even more so.
See, he paid people for that. I do not want to redo. It's, I don't want to fix that one up. It's taking me 6 years to get my shit.
Give you a minute, sir, we'll get started.
Well, get this stuff in it.
Where did you put that?
Took me 2 years to get his rent out. No, over it was a key.
No. I spent a little bit of time with my wife on my yard and then I'm going on the street by myself. And then I usually outside quite a bit actually.
Anytime you are, Mr. Walters.
Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Delaware County Redevelopment Commission 6/16/25 to order. You all please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
Ron Halbert.
Here.
Mike Waitman.
Here.
Adam Jones.
Here.
Marshall Palmer.
Present.
Bill Walters.
Here.
And Amy Roberts.
Okay, first item, we've got minutes. These are the minutes from April 29, 2025. You notice we were short a couple members last time that weren't at the meeting, so I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of April 29, 2025.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Got a first and second. Any discussions, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Okay. That's that down. We've got 2 requests and then 1 update. First request is request for the cement for the stormwater building.
You want me to talk?
Yeah, I guess you're doing, I didn't see Brad here, so, and I know I was out of town on that one, and I thought it was a 67 tip and up to 18, but I was not sure, so that's
So we
why.
have 2 quotes. We have 2 quotes that we had at the town board meeting. We had Vern at 22K and McNally at 15,898. The board recommended that we go with McNally at 15,898 and forward it to you guys. So
And was that not, I wasn't here, remember, I was out
it
of that
was
meeting.
to pay for the cement for the new stormwater building. The cement goes through the entrance.
But didn't we, I don't have a sheet in front of me, but it seems like from that, we were looking at the 67 tip on that one.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have a request in front of the board.
Let's make clear though, the 67 tip, is that the Culvers, or is that are Culvers in the Salem Apartments? Or
Yes.
is that, okay.
Culvers and Salem Apartment.
Do we know what the balance is on that too?
And that was gonna be the next question. I didn't grab my, wait a minute, I might
It
have
was
my
on the
sheet.
fund report.
I might have my fund report still.
I don't think I have one out here.
Hang on.
You guys don't have an IPO run one real quick.
Hang on.
It's low, but it's got money in it for it.
We haven't gotten the distribution yet.
At the time, I think we had both of them together.
Yes, so it
And
may
then-
not,
then
I
after
just
that, we-
separated it in May. So if you've got the May fund report,
I'm digging, hang on here, yeah, I know it is. Maybe I'm lying. I thought I had. I must have already took it out, I don't have it. I had it from our meeting.
Together, they had
on my desk.
Do you want me to go run one? I will.
Can you grab one real
I
quick?
just need to grab the boss lady's keys and
Or can you
everything.
can you just pull it up on your laptop and give us the, I know it was good, but I forget what it was.
The 67 is the one you want,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Yep.
And tell them why she's doing that again, I wasn't there, the one for the 30K on the police vest, do you remember which one that was asked for?
on the
please.
The police vest, the 30K with the reimbursement of the 15K, do you remember which tip that was
That
asked
has
for?
to be out of that. The Delaware County one moved to us.
Okay,
I think it's called Daleville Tip One.
Okay. That's gonna be hard to remember. So they'll tell one.
yeah, 67, I just remember the other, just put the 67 on it and leave it there. I know where it's at. I wasn't sure which one it was.
Am I able to ask a question?
Mhm.
The,
Oh, wait a minute.
yeah, so the money for this concrete at the stormwater building, is that something that would typically come out of the 67 tip? Sorry, I'm not abreast with where.
It's come from, it is ours, I mean, that's a municipal building and it's for public safety and use the stormwater was put in there, we can use that money to, it's economic development, it developed once we separated the stormwater from sanitary, now we have a stormwater project and not water standing all over town. So
For
it helps out the land issue
The
completely
better-
all the way around, it betters the town.
That was the time.
So yes, we can take it out of that tip if we so choose, if this board so deems it.
I wasn't questioning ethic, I just didn't know that's what we typically do.
You get, the tip district gets different ask of anything, there's some leniency there, we can always go to John, but there is some leniency there of what you can and cannot use it for, within what realm.
And is
That there is within one, excuse me.
Is that including the driveway up to that facility, or? is that-
I believe that was the whole quote, was the front, the only thing that's concrete is the front edge of the building going all the way across the 3 bay doors and the entrance door to the end of the
To the
building,
street, yeah.
to the street. So it's right there, as you've been by, it's right there at it, pretty much a car lane park up on top.
Give you a little history on that, Marshall. The stormwater building itself was paid for by the loan fund. It was excess money we had from the project. And so the agreement was, that's basically paid for the building. And the agreement was, if we're gonna do the building, we've gotta have the guts, all the things around it and everything. And that was agreed that, yeah, we'd fund that with either edit money or tip money. Because there's no money in the other funds to do it, so.
Current balance on it is 52,159.47. As Amy said, we haven't gotten a distribution, is that what you said?
I have not.
Have not.
I'll make the motion to approve the request.
I have a first, do I hear a second?
Are you doing exactly 15,898 or up to 16?
Was it 18?
Yeah, 16 works.
I thought it was 18,890.
15.8. And the other one was 22K, 15.8 on one vendor, 22K on the other. Burns was
Who was
22K,
the second?
the other one was 15.8.
Nobody yet.
Oh, okay.
Did that quote have an expiration date, just like in the event that material costs would change or something like that? Do you guys
I
know?
don't think it's been, they've actually, I had Brad put it on the schedule, and it's scheduled for July, so there's been no discussion of potential rising costs, so.
We got a First on the table, I've got a second by Mike. Any further discussion? And that was Ally, was the concrete company? What was the name of that second concrete company? Tom?
McNally.
McNally.
And they did work for us, I think they did the sidewalk at the Shellbarger Park.
Oh, the trail?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, got a first and second. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved. Okay, next is, request from the, you want to go over that police department, 30K on the vest?
Yeah, so that request had come in several months back, so I apologize, I'm not gonna have, very specific details, but it is the full replacement of all the officers' vests, and, that is it's a matching grant, is that right, Amy? Like, we're only paying for half.
Reimbursable grant.
It's a reimbursable grant.
We'll pay 30,000 and they will reimburse us 15. Now James says it's not gonna be that much, so it's 30,000 would be the
Matt.
max. But I think we're getting a discount because they've had problems.
Well, that's what was throwing me. I was tripping over my words because I had in my mind the $15,000 to $16,000 number was in.
So we have to pay it, show we paid it, and then we send them the invoice and they reimburse us half.
Yeah.
Is what happens. They send it back. So basically, we'd spend it out and then when it comes back, we would put it back in the, whatever tip we're taking it out of, so.
Yeah, and I would like to be,
That was my watch.
I'd like to be pretty specific on the motion because I'm good with spending the money up front, but I want to make sure that it comes back to us.
So,
And that we don't have an outlay. We're agreeing to pay 30,000 up front, but the actual intent is to pay 16,000, no more than 16,000.
Exactly, but just the way the grant works, we have to do it this way.
So-
And which tip is that coming out of?
Delville 1.
Yeah, so that
That is your
long-windedness is my motion, that, yes.
So
we're
motion
paying-
to pay for the 30K vest up front out of the Delville tip 1 with the reimbursement going back to the
Yeah.
Delville tip 1.
Yeah, I've got 30,000 and the grant will reimburse half.
I've got a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Marshall? Got a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. Okay. The last thing on the table is the DCRC request and the meeting that we had with that. Me and Adam did have a meeting with Ms. Green, president of the board, as Commissioner Brand was there. We met in the attorney's office for a little about an hour, going over that. Would you like to go over what we went through there?
Yeah, so we discussed essentially what our position was, and in being new to managing that tip, right? Or I guess the remainder of that tip. And over the course of that conversation, in subsequent conversations and looking at information, we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? So their request is legitimate when you look at past payouts and past actions of the tip. But at the same point, there's not that much money, right? And so it seems like it's almost an undue burden on the tip. And so through back and forth conversation, what we agreed upon was capping that contribution to 20% of the excess monies, the unencumbered money in that tip. And so as an example, for this year, the initial request, the request to handle the invoices that had come in for the first quarter of the year amounted to $76,000. Most of those were front-loaded, but we knew that there would be additional. right? So that, say the initial request is 76,000. The negotiated amount for the year and going forward would be 65,000 is the amount that's in the remaining.
20% of the vote.
20% of the available, yes. And that keeps us in a good working relationship with the county. But in addition to that, we are the only TIF that is managed by the DCRC that has this type of arrangement. And if you go through and you look at the documents here from 2024 on back, we have been doing this. We have been paying a fair share or an equal share, an equal share. And I think the advantage of the agreement where we're in now is that we're equal share up to a point. And that's the discussion, that's the proposal out on the board, is that we are going to be treated differently. And it is a very good deal for us in the respect that if you look at how the TIF has been handled in the past, this is a lesser amount, and we get to continue with the remaining balance, do it as we need, as we see fit. We all know that we do have financial strain. But at the same point, if we do need assistance from the county, we have maintained a cordial relationship with them, and we can move forward that way.
Ms. Green, would you like to give any change or anything from our meeting there before anybody else comments? I mean, we were there. I want to make sure the board gets all the information that we discussed in that meeting. If you see anything different that he said.
No, I completely agree with everything that Mr. Jones just brought up. If you have any specific questions of me, obviously, Mr. Walters, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Brook were all in that meeting, but we are all different people. So if you have any questions of me from a DCRC standpoint, I'm more than happy to answer them. But I believe that Mr. Jones' assessment is spot on.
The other thing I'd like to say moving forward is we should and will have representation, a Daleville representative at the meetings, and it would be good, and that would be their job to ensure that, as these things come in real time, we can monitor that situation. But I feel pretty strongly at this point that we have been treated fairly.
Do we not have a representative there now?
Right now, we don't
We don't
have
have one on the board as of right now. I used to attend the majority of those meetings. They were at the Innovation Connector, with Tom, Bryce and all them. Now they're at the courthouse. I have IARC meetings on that same day. It was convenient because I could stick in headphones and listen and go back and forth. It's kind of difficult.
But I mean, we don't have anybody representing Daleville on the DCRC board.
No. Those seats were changed. Those seats were changed coming into this year. Kerry Wiggerly, Stephen Brand, Shannon Henry, Ms. Green, Rob Keith. I think I got all.
And so we won't have someone officially on the board.
No one on the board, but we could have someone at the meeting for representation or comment on Daleville.
Can I
Anything that comes in.
interject here?
Yes, ma'am.
The board is comprised of commissioner and council appointments. I mean, there are various TIPs that the DCRC manages that are in Eaton, Albany, Gaston, Yorktown, and it's the appointments come from council and commissioners. It's not specific to where the money is coming from TIP wise.
Okay. Sorry, I was writing a misunderstanding then.
No, I like that you said someone will be attending the meetings, but, and I think that's necessary, but having someone from Daleville attend is different than having someone sit.
Yeah, it's having someone and having a voice on the board, yeah.
Those seats, correct me if I'm wrong, all 5 of those seats are up at the end of the year. It gets reassigned on a year-to-year basis. So as of right now, no, we do not, as Daleville has a representative on the board. Questions, comments?
Can I ask why we're doing 20% and not case by case? Because I'm not against helping with the countywide initiative at all. But I just feel like 20%, the proceeds are gonna change as the TIP district changes, as the income comes in, as it grows, whatever. So,
Back and forth, yeah.
right, it's gonna go back and forth. But why, because when we had to ask for money, we basically had to ask for a special project and be approved. So why can that not be done that way? Like 20% and not a case by case?
Are you asking me? Or
I'm asking anybody you guys were at the meeting. I don't know if that was even brought up or not.
We haven't, I guess, I'll speak just For me, I just looked at it as, I don't see the need to micromanage the redevelopment commission. We never have. If we're giving them a deal to go up, they're doing it, splitting it amongst various TIFs. They're taking everybody into consideration, just as it has been in the past.
So, but only the tips that are being, like Albany's tip, or whoever has, the smaller towns that have any tips, they're not being affected, it's just the bigger tips.
Exactly, it's always been that way. Some TIFs only have enough coming into them to take care of the obligation they were established for. They have not prospered over the years, as I think there are 7 TIFs that are prosperous now that are in their later years, that are bringing in income, or obligations have fallen off, and income is still coming in because the TIF is still viable with another bond.
Well, I don't feel like that asking for a case by case is micromanaging at all, because either way,
Well,
I mean, we've got to have an accounting of it. We're gonna want to know where the money, to make sure it benefits Daleville. I mean, so, and with no, I'm just saying, I mean, if you look back at transparency and everything, we don't have somebody voting on the board. We can have somebody attend. But if they don't like what the money's being spent on, it means their voice means nothing in the audience. So I'm just saying, if they would come to, we get the proceeds like the agreement says, that the agreement said all the proceeds come to us, and they say, hey, in the past, this has been covered by the Daleville TIF. Why can the Daleville, or we covered it with the Daleville TIF. You guys have the proceeds. We need X amount of dollars for this certain thing to pay. And this, I mean, it's been done in the past, but let us decide.
In theory, we would have to be coming to you every month. Because which I don't have a problem with, but I do agree with Mr. Walters that it is micromanaging. We don't give that opportunity to any of the other TIFs that anything is withdrawn from. We, as I stated, are appointed by the commissioners and the council, so it's not that each TIF gets representation. And when it's project specific, and this was discussed with us in this meeting, when it's, hopefully there are big projects, and timing is of the essence when those projects come through.
That was just,
And having to wait to get on your agenda if the timeline doesn't meet up, or hoping that we can come to you and get the yes that we need. Timing in those instances can make or break a project. And as Mr. Jones stated, you're ultimately getting a really good deal, because we're not asking for the permission of other small towns or TIFs. And in a big project type sense, 20%, as in this year where stuff was very much front loaded in Q1, is far below what any of the other TIFs are going to be expensing.
So so this 20% that they're going to get for 2025, do we know what it's going to be spent on?
it would not exceed, well, I mean, you can look at the deals in here. I mean, they've given you a list of some stuff that.
Well, some stuff that they wanted it for, yes, but.
Yeah.
But we'll get a report then saying they spent this much money. I mean, they'll do that for us.
It'll come out on the TIF report. I mean, all I have to do is ask for a TIF report from the auditor. Everything that comes out on there ever
Well,
since.
you have to have special permission to get the TIF report from. You can't go on Gateway and get.
No, that's
the-
public record. All you gotta do is ask the auditor for a list. That's public record.
Okay,
So,
And even if
It's
it
done
were
in a
public record,
meeting.
I would be more than happy to share it.
well, I just think it ought to be automatic. It shouldn't have to be asked for. It should just be every time the money's spent, it's a report sent to us. I
like,
don't think there's any problem with that.
I don't think anybody would have an issue with that.
Yeah,
And reporting, I mean, I understand wanting a paper copy and having the paper trail and being able to look at something tangible. But when we make decisions in our meetings, we decide at those meetings, if it's a countywide project, what TIPs it's coming out of, and it's split evenly.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking at this here. And to take a step back, like you were asking about like an itemized list, we could literally they could be sending us a request, in this case, for $50. Because like this one, we paid for a press release for Mercick Tool and Die, it was $500. Our share was $50. And so they would be coming to us for a $50 request, right? And that happens like you should see this. Like, this happens all the time. There's requests for $500, there's requests for $200, and
And it's a countywide, it benefits Daleville.
Yeah, it's usually your press releases or businesses or things that have to do with countywide.
yeah,
That's all, it's software programs, EMS, 911, all of those.
yeah, so
When
you
you put those together, these are originals, I gotta keep back to John.
Doesn't that 20% also include some things that are exclusively in the Daleville tip, like mowing of some grass and also?
No, all of these here, I did not take anything specific out of that area. I only took the stuff that was divvied up out of the books. I did not take anything area specific, which John has pointed out, there is some things, the mowing that goes on for certain properties that are here.
And stormwater assessments and that sort of stuff.
So I didn't see this until Bill got here, but I started looking through, and it's like each year, I mean, this is basically the same stuff each year. Like, we've been paying this for a long time, and this is how I don't want to put words in your mouth, Amber, but you're budgeting some of this stuff, right? Like, the expectation, like, so the live streaming, it's what, $40 per tip, and you've already assumed that expense at the start of the year. Police software, we benefited from that, which I'm guessing is New World. Yeah. That kind of thing. And so this automates the process for them, but then also has a cap for us.
So for example, this is one from 2024, financial advisory services, and then see the attached TIF breakdown. Daleville is, the Daleville TIF paid $10,300, and the most anybody else spent was $3,700.
Because of the size of the tip, was that the on-ball deal? Those were done differently?
Magna is larger than us, aren't they?
Yeah.
Morrison Road, Park One, Industrial Center, I-69, Ag Park, New Bravini, Park Bravini,
You
Save
gotta
a Lot.
remember that when they did the analysis, they also did our tip districts as well, because they were considered inside there as well, 67. And I think we had the forest tip at one time set over that area. I think we got rid of it, but then we had it for a while. I can't remember all of
So
that.
you're saying for this particular bill, we were the largest
We
tip?
had more tips and more work with them than the others did. They may have had one tip,
Gotcha.
Bell had one thing. We had 3 different tips that had to be analyzed and projected and sent out with obligations and all that.
The Daleville tip is 3 or 4
Yes.
different areas.
Yes, correct, sir.
And another question I had, well, just a statement. We're all well aware that the property tax revenues are gonna be cut. And there's more than likely, we are gonna have to turn to the TIF to help relieve our town's financial. So I just don't want that in jeopardy.
Well, I think that there's another part to that I don't think anybody yet has a clear understanding in SB1 of what's gonna happen. TIF districts may go away across the board. If they're eliminating property tax, something's gonna happen. Nobody that I'm aware of, and unless someone can tell me otherwise, I'm reading emails on a day to day, I'm in 2 webinars going in. They're not 100% sure, other than increase your local income tax and things that we gotta do, but no one has
Well,
really laid down a concrete.
Documentation they gave you at the meeting was from AIM.
Exactly, but as you see at the backside, all that money starts dropping off, so also they drop off to pay the obligations that are already out there in the TIF. So those have got to be covered first, and if there is any excess, I'm not sure what the plan is they're giving us to cover those obligations as of yet. Have you seen anything different at this point, Amber?
I've not seen anything different. I believe prior obligations have been mentioned, because basically every tip in the state is going to have prior obligations that need
Exactly.
to be covered. And so I think that is being accounted for, but I know from my position, being on this board for nearly 2 years and being the president this year, I would be incredibly hesitant to place any general fund lax on tip districts.
Oh,
in the
no, we
future.
wouldn't put general, I'm just saying, you
Right.
spend out of the TIF, so you don't have to spend out of the general, is what I'm saying,
We're gonna have
as
to.
revenue
I
replacement, not,
think what I'm.
no, you never do that.
Yeah, and what you've seen, and you sent out the information you sent out, and what I'm seeing is it's pretty much saying, get back with inside your budget, because your TIF districts are gonna shrink down to almost nothing. I mean, if you read between the lines, that's what I see. I could be wrong, if they could go in a different direction, but I'm not seeing any language that is giving a replacement. If you're
Oh, no,
taking
there's
away-
no replacement revenue
That's what I
inside.
mean,
And we can't do a local income tax with us,
right,
because we have to count on the county for that.
Agree
County has to
100%.
address ours.
But as a guy looking at numbers and sees them every day, I don't see the numbers adding up, that the lid is gonna take care of the obligations we already have
Oh,
out
no, it
there
won't.
underneath property
It won't.
tax and tip. So there's more legislation coming. They put us in a pickle and they've got the next 2 years to figure it out before you big.
I know, that's the discussion that we've got too, is they've done this, where's our revenue replacement plan, and no one has it.
No.
But that's why I'm just saying, I'm looking at the TIF not as revenue replacement, but to use it so we can use our general fund for, instead of the projects. I mean, we've been doing it already, because we've had to offset our budget plenty
If I
of
was a
times.
gambling person, I'd say most areas are gonna do that as of right now, is use the tip, because they can keep their general and roll it over as we know it in 18 months. If you don't use it, move it, where if you use the tip, then you're not out that obligation money. You may have some money stuck away in a rainy day or somewhere else that we can move around.
That was, cover yours for a second. That would, if revenue goes down, that would be even more of a reason to have this agreement in place, because they're gonna do the same thing we're gonna do, right? They're gonna move money around.
Exactly, I know.
Right, and so,
That's what I'm
We're still
just protecting Daleville. That's what I'm looking at.
That's what we're doing.
And then I'm also worried about, I mean, I don't want to speak for the school, but the school's got to be worrying too, because the TIP district already takes away from the school.
Since you brought it up, Amy, thank you. I've been on this picture for 10
Oh,
minutes.
sorry.
This year, 2026, Daleville Community Schools projected is 129,330, minus 5.1%. 2027, 135,060 dollars, minus 5.2%. And for 2028, minus 155,740 dollars, another 5.8%. And this commission does help the school from time to time for projects and we're grateful for it. But like you just said, revenue replacement, I'm worried about losing school cops. I'm worried about losing support personnel. I'm more worried about that than playgrounds or, whatever else. And so we're all in the same boat. And so we're looking at minus $500,000 in 3 years.
Like I said, the legislation's gonna have to do something in the next 2 years to give us an avenue to move things forward, because right now they have.
Or they don't.
If they don't, that's gonna be a whole nother conversation, so. All right, any other questions, concerns?
I
You just
still,
get 20% of what's left over in the
20% of the revenue coming in, as of, like he said, for this year, it'd be 325, you're looking at about $65,000.
warrant.
That would adjust from year to year. If they don't spend the $65,000, then that money would be forwarded on with the rest of the money from the previous obligations that we get from year to year.
If we don't have it, then there's some thousand, maybe they get.
Whatever we get,
They
they
get
only get
20% of
20% of
proceeds.
whatever we take in as revenue
Okay.
that's coming in and above the obligation. That is it.
Daleville still would get in excess of probably $250,000.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As of right now, we still have stuff that hasn't went on there as of yet, because you're still a year and a half out before you collect any time that's collected and then distributed. We won't see something for probably another year on a couple. I think we just started seeing culverts,
Well, we haven't seen it yet.
but it's supposed to.
We're hoping that it hits in June,
It's the June drop.
that we'll get Salem.
we're hoping, we
and
haven't seen
culverts in
it.
June.
Yeah, if not, it definitely should hit in December.
Yeah.
So, but then we
It's
get
just
the
like
others.
these two new ones.
The two new ones, you're a year and a half out before we see any funds coming in from that time that's collected, distributed, the whole 9 yards. But yes, there's more will be coming in.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, depending on whether there's any property tax, what they do with property tax system is they're doing now with SB1, with all of the falling off, how far do they take it, where do we go from there?
Right.
So, some things we can answer.
So we're still paying for the same money is still coming out of the same TIF that has historically already come out of there.
Correct.
We're just capping our,
Expenditure.
responsibility to pay
Correct.
at 20%. So, I feel like those obligations were already there. It's not something new. So I think that answers my question.
Anybody else?
I just feel like we can manage our TIF money ourselves. Before we didn't, the reason there's a, Delaware County has our TIF is because we did not have a TIF, a redevelopment commission, and now we do, so that's.
No.
just that we're giving 20% or agreeing to 20%.
Correct.
Are we going to, is that for this year? Is it gonna be, are we writing up an agreement? Is it in writing for every
There'll be
year?
an
How are we gonna
amendment.
do that?
There'll be, if there was something that was agreed upon by this board, there'd be an amendment that would go forward, and it would be for year 2025.
And then each year we would readdress it, the percentage?
It
Or
would
not.
stay there, it stays at the 20%, and it goes from there. That was one of the deals that,
So there's no
Mr. Jones.
renegotiating the 20% at all, ever?
Well, there's always been a process.
yeah, I mean, you can always
That's
go
why
in
I
and
asked.
ask to do it, yeah. but
It would
no.
take, it would take both of us though, right?
It would, and I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned in the meeting that you would like to see the addendum to the interlocal agreement go for the duration of the TIF.
Yep.
And I think that's beneficial to everyone involved, especially, I don't know what your terms are, I'm assuming they're the same as ours, but because our board can literally completely change year over year, I think having it for the duration of the TIF is the best benefit to both commissions.
What's the board's pleasure?
I think we've discussed it in the ground.
Unless anybody else has. questions.
Anybody in the audience like that?
Was this
I'll
just
open.
something that was kind of an afterthought from the original agreement? Like, once we saw it play out, then we realized there was a need to shift some of it back to the county? Or did something happen that made the decision, instead of us having the proceeds after the bot and the town hall park payment and all that? I guess what was the catalyst behind deciding that we were gonna shift 20% back when originally 100% of the proceeds were this way?
I think I can answer that, because that agreement, when that was put into place, that interlocal, didn't take any of this stuff into consideration at all. And so it automatically set us apart from everybody else in the county. And for Daleville, yeah, that was a great deal, right? But for everybody else, we screwed everybody else over. And so it's in the end, it wasn't the right thing to do. We should be contributing, and we should be helping the same as everybody else. But no more, right? So that's kind of where we're at. And again, I can't stress it enough. We are getting a better deal in the end. We are contributing less than we have in any year here, all the way back. So 5 years worth.
I haven't seen everything that, from what I've been told from two people, we actually were giving back. Am I correct?
Yeah, we've been contributing. That's what all this is. These are the
Yeah.
contributions the TIF has been making.
This has just been the same way. It wasn't something that brought up. It was just not put in that amendment when it come through. No one considered this going through, and it's been a history of being done. So when they brought forth the request, that was because they couldn't do it like they had done it in previous years.
Just to go back a little bit, can you see how this can be a little bit, I don't know, apprehensive because of the first initial request? The sheriff cars and the mowing equipment had nothing to do with Daleville, and they were requesting $76,000. And so that focus really caused a lack of confidence in what the county was really asking for. And so now they've shifted to this, and this is common sense. But it just wasn't right to request money for sheriff's cars and mowing equipment for outside of Daleville for us to pay for it.
Can I speak to that?
Give me a minute first. I was 100% on team WTF, right?
Okay, I didn't get that.
He doesn't
I'm
get
slow.
that. He can't do that. He doesn't.
Okay, now we're up to speed.
Yeah.
I was there. I was like, what is this, right? And I felt like it was my inexperience of knowing what has happened in the past. And then as I began to get up to speed and soak in the information and find out that we have been doing these things, then I immediately saw the other side. But at the same point, having a duty to do what's best for Daleville, That's why we met up, to see what we could do, because it is a lot of money for Daleville, and it was something we hadn't had the exposure to previously.
And not to go back and harp back for, but we did the same in 2022, $375,000 on sheriff's cars. They were Fords. It was just a lease program split out over $75,000, which we've paid an allotment of that one. There's one more payment left to go on that as well. Payment 4 was made this year. Payment 5 will be made next year. They entered into that agreement in 2020.
But that goes back to us not having representation, because I wouldn't have been happy about that. So, so I would have been against that.
We're gonna have to lobby more for the positions between the council and the commission.
Wasn't James on the redevelopment commission in 2022 and Bryce?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I think those two were on there. I know Bryce was on there, but I wasn't sure about James in 22. I know Bryce wasn't.
Yeah.
Bryce is on
Bryce
there.
is from Yorktown, so.
Yeah, he left Daleville and went to Yorktown. He stayed on for both positions.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. You had.
No, you're fine. To speak to what was presented, when this conversation started, it was right at the end of Q1. So it was just a comparative analysis of what would have been split between all of the TIFs in the past, had we still had control of the Daleville TIF. It was not project specific, and it was anything that would have been split amongst those TIFs. I know that there seems to be contention between a couple of those items, and it was highway equipment, which in my personal opinion does benefit everyone in the county, regardless of what TIF it's coming from or where you live. But those were not us picking and choosing projects. It was literally anything that had come before us in January, February, or March that was split because it was a countywide initiative, a countywide service, or a countywide project.
And most of those do come in at the first of the year because it's up front for the whole year.
So speaking to the sheriff's vehicles, so all of the TIFs were charged that, I have that paper somewhere, charged the $49,377.92
Yes,
each TIF.
each of the top TIFs, yes.
How many TIFs was that split between?
I believe it was split between 7.
I think it was
It's
7,
14%.
either 6 or 7.
Do we get 14% use of the sheriff's vehicles up here?
We,
That would be my argument. Because we know, we have the stats were presented to us, it's a 4-to-1. I'm just saying,
I know,
it needs to be, I don't have a problem with countywide initiatives, but make it fair across the board, and that's what it needs to be.
and it's fair across the board with the TIF districts that are in place as of now.
What
Has
about-
been doing the exact same thing.
So it's only the top tip districts that pay for the countywide.
Always been that way back when our member says
So,
on the
so
board.
the other tip, every one of the other tip districts only have enough money to cover
Not
their
every,
major,
not
their,
everyone.
their bond.
Some of them vary back and forth to the obligations falling off and then more come involved as their obligations fall off. Now, some will never have more than their obligation. That's how they were set up. Small towns like Albany, Selma, their TIF is set up just enough to cover
Their obligations.
their obligation, and that is it.
There are 22 TIFs, I think, in the entire county, and of those 22, 14 or 15 are only designed for specific projects. They are designed to help with infrastructure for like MRSICs out at Bethel and Morrison Road, for the Morrison Road TIF. There are ones that were designed for the car dealership there at Nebo Road. That's Nebo 2 or Nebo 3 or something like that. Those are ones just specific for infrastructure work based on an economic development project alone. The Bell Perch was primarily and only for the fish farm up in Albany. The bond is now been paid off, so it's going to generate a little more revenue, but that was years in the making. That was the only design for infrastructure for Bell Perch. And so that's the majority of the TIFs in Delaware County.
We actually had the one you were talking about over here for the senior homes that.
Yep.
This is.
Forest.
Song, but
Yeah.
that's
Forest.
specific
Right.
towards that.
Yeah,
Specific for that one.
no revenue ever came in, it
Right.
was sat there, it was waiting in
So
development,
now
but
it's
it
ours,
never
it's
happened.
now been absorbed into ours.
Yeah, it's, we can still got the rights to do it,
Old
we
Town
did
Junction.
development, but it never did proceed.
What I'm just saying is all this could have been avoided probably if we had had a group to get together initially, before this $76,000 thing came out. And said, listen, we forgot about this, because we had $250,000 that went out in January or February that they forgot about. And we just sent it back, no big deal. So then they come in at $76,000 and you start thinking, oh my gosh, what are they doing? They're taking all our money back.
That's exactly.
And so I think it would have been handled better, and this whole thing would have been smoothed over if we had just communicated better.
Yeah, I agree with you. Timing was bad. But you're right. We had gotten a check and then we're immediately mailing money back.
And in all fairness, that was drops of the ball by different groups. The auditor's office should have caught that, it should have never been sent to us. Those were obligations that were on the books, done by DCRC, should have been captured and recorded at the auditor's office that went through. Remember when we first got that check, I think, when Trina, you guys, I knew, I went into panic mode, knowing that number was way too big. I knew there was something out there that wasn't accounted for, and done a little bit of digging, and that's, hope, I'm glad that we did, so that didn't come back and bite us after we done spent and go, oh, where's the money? We don't have it, we done spent it.
We didn't have long enough to spend it.
Yeah, but it was just, you knew that the number wasn't right with the obligations that were on there. I mean, Tom's done it for years. He was president, read the sheets. You know what the obligations, like, wait a minute, something ain't right here. How can we be at 112 knowing you got two obligations coming? There's money missing somewhere. Why? And we were sent too much.
So the only thing I would suggest, instead of going to basically in perpetuity until the thing is to, because this is our initial year and their initial year of giving it to us, that we would maybe set it up for 20% this year, and then look at it next year to see if everything's okay. Because we've got tax issues. This is our first year of holding the thing, and to sign on to 20% for 30 years doesn't make much sense to me. But
Well, we're not gonna have 30 years. We've got 17. As soon as this tip goes down,
yeah, until we get another bond out there.
Yeah.
Well, and now, hang on a second. John, did you find out any more information on that from our conversation?
No, there was some language in Senate Bill 1 that limited the TIF bonding to just the current lifetime of the TIF. So whenever the TIF goes away, it goes away. When all the bonds go off, it goes away. You can't bond the TIF, and I think that was even done a year or two ago. You can't bond the TIF forever.
So whatever the longest life of it, say we've got the 3 bonds we got out there, and the last one dies in 2020. The TIF district dies in 2020, no matter what. You cannot bond up anything that will go past 2020, because this TIF district will come to an end.
I'm just saying, yeah, regardless, you're tying it for 17 years then, 20%.
So how long is this building bonded out for?
It's got, you're right, about 17 years.
It's about, yeah, because it's
In
20,
the park,
it's 20
what's the
years.
park?
It's less than that.
15.
Yeah, it was 20.
It's probably 20 now.
Well, I meant left, like, I think 15.
Yes.
But
So
I
this building here would be the longest.
So unless another project comes up, that we bond out of that.
It can be done within the time frame that's still available on the books for years. You could do a bond, or you could not do one.
So, Tom, I'm not 100% sold that it would be worth the risk of doing, 1 year or 2 years and then reassessing. Like, as Amber said, their board could change at any time, right? And somebody goes through, takes a look and goes, Daleville's screwing us, right? Or Daleville's not paying their share.
Yeah, but we're in charge.
Mhm.
You mean because both parties have to agree to the change?
I think that concludes that nobody's really in charge.
Well, I mean, we're in charge of our money, right? Really, we're setting the agreement to pay them 20%. We're not asking them, can we pay you 20%? We're saying, we're gonna pay you 20% for the next 17 years. And then you guys will not bother us.
Up to that amount.
I say we're paying the 20% to continue to participate as being a member of Delaware County, same as we have in the previous 20 years. I don't think we're making an agreement. I think we're making an agreement to continue to participate with Delaware County.
For activities that were previously
That has been set up by
historically
President.
already paid.
Correct.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing that up because it's an established trend, a way of doing business. I don't see it as bothering you, and maybe that's part of the reason that the communication took a while to get that meeting established, because I believe that's how some of the emails were construed from the beginning, as being bothersome instead of as open communication. So speaking from my perspective, I appreciate that you were both willing to come in and have that communication, because emails were going nowhere. And I think moving forward, that type of communication is what's necessary, not only from our commission and yours, but any of the representatives from other TIP districts. So that's my 2 cents on that.
One more thing, like you said, it's the same things that it's always been paid. That's what that 20%. So, but this is an unusual list. This isn't always, I mean, I can see Baker Tilly, tip analysis was always.
All of that that's on that list has been taken care of by previous DCRC agendas.
But the sheriff's vehicles will drop off.
Sheriff's vehicles really aren't part of this. Sheriff's vehicles, I mean, you get 20%, and these are traditional and historic expenditures.
So I'm just saying, if it's the sheriff's vehicles, one of the traditional ones, or, because you're saying it's, you know what I'm saying?
No, they're not traditional because they come up every 3 years, maybe.
Okay,
Well,
so they wouldn't be,
weren't-
sheriff's vehicles would not be a yearly.
Exactly.
They're not, they weren't in place before 2022. They didn't make a request before 2022.
Correct, that was the first one.
Right.
Lease agreement.
Yeah, I know I saw one of them.
We did-
I'm at the right here, yeah.
I don't know what this way, I think.
And they would be deducting the 20% of the proceeds before we see the payment to us. So we would see what we're supposed to get, and then we'd see their 20% come off. And then we would see.
Correct, we only have
It would be
three,
spelled out.
we only have 3 obligations. There's 3 obligations on the books. Whatever's left minus 20%, that's what would be coming to us.
And any of that 20% it isn't up to 20%. So if that 20%
Yes.
is not utilized, it would come back to you at the end of the year.
And that's on a year-to-year basis. If they only spent 15% in 1 year, then that 5% would come to us at the beginning of the next year. It would start over. It's not a rolling, oh, we only spent 15, so this year we got 25%. No, it's a year-to-year basis. Because this fluctuates, like John said, like the cards, every 3 years. There's major fluctuations in what comes in front of the DCRC.
One last question, and I'm gonna shut up. So the Baker Tilly charge, will we be paying for it twice? Do you know, John? Because will we pay them to look at the TIF money that's here? And we have to pay for them with the TIF money that's at the county with the debt and all that? I mean, how is that going to be handled?
You would be paying Baker Tilly for the Daleville tips, and you'd be paying part of Baker Tilly for county tips. They're 2 separate tips, 2 separate entities.
I just don't want to pay twice for the same TIF.
No, you're not paying twice for the same
Okay.
tip.
There's
There's,
be one.
you've got,
Wait,
you've
we're
got 2
paying for
different
analysis
tips.
of proceeds and then analysis of.
We're paying for 67, the 4s are the ones on here, and the analysis for that. 67, the Daleville one would still go through that because it's a Daleville County tip. And those distributions in that deal that go out would be part that was distributed amongst everybody, just for that tip. We've got the other 2, so that's 1 tip over here, 2 over here, total separate bills. Total separate bills.
I see that, I'm just trying to figure out the bill that I looked at then, so. Because you're saying that they did more of an analysis on more tips, that's why our cost was $10,000.
Because they were all over there last year until they give us the tip this year, so they were doing all the reports.
They weren't doing,
They did the Daleville tip,
They didn't do a 67 tip report. They shouldn't have been. Well, no, they did, yes,
Yes,
they
I was gonna
did.
say-
Matt Eckerly works with me on that one. It's the only one I do with him personally.
Right.
So they don't, I'm just saying, they don't work on that tip with.
No, you're right, there's two
Just wanna
separate
make
ones.
sure. Because money's getting tight, so.
I know. Okay, any more questions? How would the board like to proceed? Hang on, I got one more. Yes, sir.
So you said how many obligations are through these TIFs?
Sorry?
How many obligations do you have currently through the TIFs? 3?
Uh-huh.
So assuming that maybe this board changes in the next couple of years and those obligations grow, and then you get to a point where that 20% is down to $500, we'll say that you're sending to Daleville County. How does that, do you guys have a plan for that? You see what I mean? Does that cause a negative impact? Does that, any of that nature? Because I mean, you
Yeah,
get
if we were,
those
if we were to go into a new bond or something, there would be revenue for that bonding source to cover whatever that commitment was within the time frame that would be left.
Okay.
It should never go down to that, nowhere.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
That was
it
a
should- it
crazy
should never.
number.
You're gonna have obligations falling off. Could we enter into new obligations? It wouldn't come out of the money that's currently in there, because when you establish a new obligation, you establish a funding source for that obligation out of that development's tax revenue. If you cannot fulfill it with that, you would not enter into that bond agreement. So the revenue and where we're at now would stay the same with those obligations, 3 that we have talked about, falling off whenever they fall off dead, and that money would be revenue inside there.
So
But
that,
it could not take it, like you were saying, to 0, because you can only enter into an obligation if you can fund that obligation.
and I'm just getting a better understanding.
No, that's all right.
Because then it
You
kind
have
of,
to be, you have
because
to
then it
have a
kind of-
funding mechanism as far as to fund an
it
obligation.
kind of defeats the purpose of agreement.
Correct.
You see what I mean? I just wanted to
I
kind
do.
of ask about that.
No, good question. It is. You have to have, but you have to have the funding source to enter into the obligation one way or another. Be it pledge money from edit, just like they did the buy on the jail, pledge
Right.
from all the towns, or from financing, you're buying the bonds up front and your taxes are gonna pay the obligation on the note until it's complete.
Okay.
With a clawback on it if you don't, it's your obligation, not on the taxpayer. We have done that with every bond that we've put out since I know me and Brad, when Brad and I took over, there's always been a clawback on it. That we don't put it on the taxpayer's back.
Okay.
Okay? How would the board like to move forward?
I would like to get this closed out.
Marshall's hungry.
Marshall's hungry. Do I hear a
Did
motion?
you hear my stomach? Yes, I'll make a motion.
Yeah, I'll second.
What is the motion exactly?
I'll make a motion to accept the 20%.
We'll make a motion to modify the current interlocal agreement to allow the county to,
We have to do an amendment to the agreement.
That's exactly what I was saying, Don.
I'm just trying to help.
I'd like to make a motion to modify the interlocal agreement
For the 20%.
for 20%.
To approve up to 20%.
On a year basis.
I wrote a bunch of stuff down. I can't read any of it.
Okay, hang on, let's make sure.
So modify
I've got
the
a first and a
agreement to approve up to 20% of proceeds to the DCRC on a yearly basis,
Unencumbered.
on an unencumbered yearly basis? Is that what you said?
Unencumbered.
Unencumbered
Up to
proceeds.
20% of the unencumbered proceeds.
Right, because we got the 3 obligations that have to be fulfilled first, and they get 20% of anything that's not obligated. The rest comes to us at the end of the year. John, you'll make up the amendment.
Well, let's vote on this first.
Who's the first and second?
Marshall made the motion, Adam was the second. And I think in the clarifying, and that just to make sure all points are in there, that any of the 20% that was not used in the year will be forwarded in the next year with the unobligated money. Correct?
Yes.
On a year-to-year basis. You say when, Amy, we'll do a roll call.
Okay, roll call. Amy Roberts, I say no. Mike Waitman,
Yes.
Marshall Farmer,
Yes.
Adam Jones,
Yes.
And are you voting?
Yes,
You're voting?
yes, this is, there's nothing on the table other than the 20% from the redevelopment commission. Am I correct? Would you like to explain, John?
Nope, you're exactly right. There's no conflict of interest in that. You're not a member of the redevelopment commission, and you're not, there's no conflict.
All right, that's approved. I have no other further business in front of me. Does the board have any other business tonight?
Would you like me to draft a amendment to send to the redevelopment commission, or is the redevelopment commission gonna have me draft it, or how's that all gonna work? Because I got a couple hats here and I wanna make sure that I don't step on anybody's toes.
Why don't you prepare prepare it on our behalf for an amendment to the DCRC agreement?
Well, then there's an inherent conflict of interest, which can be waived by the board if they want, because I represent both the redevelopment, county redevelopment and the Delaware redevelopment commission. So if you want me to draft it on behalf of the Delaware, which I'm fine to do, I just want the waiver of the conflict of interest by the board.
How does the board feel?
I mean, we're already this far, and the only thing we're doing is modifying an agreement that was already drafted when there was a conflict of interest. Right?
Agreed.
Is it gonna be, which party is gonna be signed, is it gonna be read for the same?
Yeah, both parties will have to agree to the amendment.
I am open to it being reviewed by a neutral party prior to signature. I mean, is that,
Do we need to do that?
Drafting agreement, on who's he drafting the agreement on behalf of us or them?
Let us, Daleville Redevelopment Commission.
is there?
I'm just letting you guys finish.
Tom, how do you feel about that? Do you want third party
Yes.
review? Okay, then let's do that.
So,
Then, it might make sense just to have them draft the agreement in the first place, and then I can just do it.
they can proceed it over to you to review on our behalf, and then the
Review it on
council.
behalf of the redevelopment commission. If you're gonna get independent counsel, which is fine, it's your absolute right to do that, then I can just review it on behalf of the Delaware County Redevelopment Commission.
How would this board like to proceed with that?
I would like to do that. I'll make that motion.
Who is the attorney we proceed with?
Let's just stick with, Pittman, Tom Pittman. What's his law firm? Barnes and Thornburg. Yep.
So I need a motion for that amendment to be drafted by Barnes and Thornburg as outlined tonight. I so entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a first. Do I have a second? I have a first and second discussion. Go.
So we're gonna have another legal expense going over the same documentation that we just discussed. Is that correct?
But what's better? For all, man.
I'm not typically, this is new for me, so.
There's very few times I can think of, on one hand, the number of times between this board and the regular town board that we haven't had unanimous decisions. And I think in this case, it's the right thing to do. Even if there's not a tremendous amount of benefit to it, it's still, like Ron said, the optics. And if it lets us move forward, then it's worth $1,000 or $2,000 to just be done with it.
I'm just asking because I don't know.
Okay. Anything else? I'm not stopping you. I'm giving you a chance. I mean,
Oh, I didn't know you.
no, you said kind of hesitated. There's like, you got something else. Go ahead. I don't want to stop you. Good?
I'm good.
Okay, I've got a first and a second on the table. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. Now, any other business before this board this evening from this board? Seeing none. Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I got one
I'll second.
and two. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need all those papers. I gotta get those. Yeah, John, you ain't leaving. Do not leave. I've been holding these.
We're still alive, right?
Huh?
We're still alive, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for saying.